why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
But really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and D-gentlemen of all ages. Happy Friday, and welcome back to another book club here on the Degen Roundtable. I am your host for the evening, Zenith, a bit of a legal and government analyst myself, and I also was forced to go through some moral and philosophy classes back in the day. So this book hits close home to me, and I greatly enjoyed it. I have a feeling that Will is going to say something similar, which, by the way, my co-host, Will, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, hey, everybody. How's it going? I too, am the Degen Roundtable's government and legal analyst. And not only is that true, but I also had to take a moral and ethics class, just like what Zenith said. We're peas in a pod in that respect. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I'm an iron worker. I build things, and I talk shit to people. So I guess, like, I was fascinated to find out that that Socrates was a stonemason or like a sculptor guy or some shit like that. So he was a hands worker, and he was freed from his hands working by like a wealthy proprietor dude who's like, hey bro, everyone's way better off listening to you talk. So I'm gonna buy you a house, and then you can rent that house to people so that you can make money, and that way you don't have to be sculpting shit all day long and whatever. Instead, you can just go around and talk to people. That's gonna be your new job. So go do that instead of doing all this crazy shit. So super fun and awesome. But yeah, man, I'm doing good. Life is great. Me and Sam just moved out of the old apartment, and now we're in a new apartment. And next week, I'm gonna be headed over to where our good friend Mr. Dace Northal is at, and I'm gonna help him install some sound panels for about a week. So that'll be fun. We'll have some good Degen Roundtable IRL. So it'd be very nice and very awesome. How are you, bro? What's new and exciting with you?
I'm doing well, just doing what I do over here. The town lost power for most of today, so that was fun. But we persist.
Whole town.
Well, parts of the town.
I imagine the important
place where my work is.
Town. Oh, did work lose power?
Yeah, work lost power.
Oh, that's
It
unusual.
was already a
I would
Friday.
imagine that place would have quite a bit of power, like available. It's a research facility, isn't it, or something?
Some places. My office building, less important. Very much.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they kept the crucial stuff running, but the the project manager guys who were in charge of fire extinguishers, they're like, they could do without power for a little bit.
Yeah, and it was a Fridays anyway, so everyone was like, well, all right, gonna take the laptop home and submit the time card when we get the internet back. All right.
Excellent. Well, cool beans. So
Yeah,
you
outside of that,
had a pretty chill day.
Yeah, a pretty chill day. I did most of this book yesterday, finished off a little bit of it today, did additional research today, looking into some of the stuff. So I feel extra prepared for tonight, which I am very good. I'm very happy about that, because this is a dense topic, and there's a lot of historical context that is not in the book that hopefully I will be able to provide a little bit of along with our discussion. But outside of that, still living large and just doing what we do out here, playing golf when I can. And we have officially started hockey career time. I went to my first stick and puck the other day, and then I texted our buddy Nuclear Herbs afterwards, and I was like, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be, and I never knew humans could sweat this much. My God, I was not ready for that.
Yeah. That's it's what was that book that we read? Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, where he talks about like the best hockey players like basically are born at a very specific month of the year because they have more time to develop before like the first season of hockey, like a 10-year-old or like a 5-year-old in 10 months has way more body mass than a 5-year-old in 0 months. You know, when they first start doing their hockey thing. So you're a little bit late in the hockey starting game to be going pro there, Mr. Zenith.
Yeah, a little bit, but that was a good book. That was a fun one as well, talking about that weird phenomenon. And I actually have the image for it here. Let me see if I can pull this up. I found this when we were doing research for that one, but it was not just that. This is a position of all the NHL players in their birth cities. Do we see a pattern?
Yeah, there's there's none from Mexico, but yeah, not a whole lot of
cold climates.
Wyoming hockey players either. That's fascinating.
No, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it has to be cold, but also populated, because like the really cold places, they don't have a whole lot of hockey players. But up there on Hudson Bay,
not a whole lot of people up there as well either.
That's true.
Gosh, I think the stat is like what 90% of the Canadian population lives within like 50 miles of the border.
Wow, that's that makes sense. I mean, yeah, you know, if you count like Toronto, Quebec, Montreal, Victoria, like yeah, or Vancouver, Victoria, yeah, most of Canada's like largest cities are really close to the border. You could say almost the same thing about the United States, that like most of the US's population is like touching the ocean, like their state is touching the ocean.
Yeah.
So, because you know, New York, California, Washington, Texas, Florida, like all the biggest population states are all like pretty much on the coastline, and then the ones that aren't, it's like it runs up the Mississippi in the middle. So it's like those are all the biggest states.
Society needs water to function. Imagine that.
Yeah. What a notion. Yeah. Except for Las Vegas, they're like, God damn it, we're gonna make this work. We're gonna truck in the water if we have to.
Well, they got the dam nearby, the Hoover Dam. So they figured that one out eventually.
Oh yeah, that's
took
right.
a while, but figured it out.
Yeah. Yes.
Gosh.
Excellent.
I don't know why anytime I talk about the Hoover Dam, my brain immediately thinks back to Transformers and those movies. And I saw some of those recently. Someone put a clip together of like the clips of like whenever they show the military calling in like strike packages and stuff. And I was like, this just was an advertisement for the military. Like, this is so cool. Like, it's literally just watching guys fly around in an AWAC, just like call it a package, and then watching the F-22s and 35s and 18s come in. And I think they also had a B-1 in the second movie as well. I was like, God, that was so good. It was so killer.
Didn't they do an A-10 gun run at some point? Like a fucking I could have swore that happened in one of the films, where it's like the flying gun. Because those are only over in Las Vegas. Those aren't anywhere else in the United States. That's the last squadron to continue the usage of the flying guns.
There's a great irony about that then, because I was going to say in Transformers 1, I remember they get the cube out of the dam, they take it to Carson City, and then they have a bunch of F-22s do pretty much like air superiority around the city, and then Starscream is disguised as an F-22. You get some really cool sequences where they're doing that, they're fighting each other, and then he comes in and like strafes dudes on the ground, and that's pretty wild. And then in the second one, I remember, I think the big one is they have like a joint strike mission out in the desert in Egypt. They have a bunch of Bradleys, and then the big finisher is they have a B-1 come drop like 20,000 pounds worth of JDAMs or something, and just obliterates the place. No, that was cool. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. Anyways,
man, it's been a long time since I've. Yeah.
Alrighty, enough of that. Yeah, how about something new? Do you have something for us there, sir?
Oh, yes, I do. Shame on me. We're over here talking about, fun videos and things. Meanwhile, the audience is out there just typing away, and here we are not reading your guys' fucking responses. It's time for the chat motherfucking shoutouts, ladies and germs. Hey. Let's fucking get into it. Zenith, what do we got today? Let's see.
First degen of the evening, Funkmaster Hex. Ladies and gentlemen, your degens, excuse me. Good evening. Good evening to you, sir. I got some nice Glenfiddich 12-year in my glass here.
I'm running to the kitchen to grab my drink as well. By the way, Zenith, is there a delay between me hearing you and responding back? It sounds like there's a delay for my side.
I think we got like a little 1 second delay going on, but it's nothing crazy.
Okay. Well, I might not have any Glenfiddich, but good sir, I do happen to be sipping
Hey.
on some fancy schmancy Fireball mixed
Attaboy.
in with my cafife. So it's going to be a coffee out of the skull mug and Fireball kind of night. So good to see you, Funkmaster Hex. Cheers to
Always
you,
a
broski.
pleasure, sir. Up next, our good buddy Centurion 54X, aka 54 Cent himself. What's up, D-Gens? What's up to you, sir? Hope you're doing well out there, having a good time. I know you're a fellow golfer as well, so hopefully the weather's starting to warm up for you. It got real toasty this last weekend, and I'm hoping that it's going to heat up again today. But we also got snow this morning, but that could just be a weird high altitude western thing. So maybe it'll be 70 tomorrow. Who knows?
You do.
Alrighty. Up next, Mr. Moonpill Rational Optics said, I had this book in my wish list. Yes, sir. I just realized we've gone this whole show yet, and I have not talked about the name of the book. The book is How to Think Like Socrates by Donald Robertson. This is actually by the same author who did How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. That was a fantastic book that we all really, really liked. And I want to say it definitely made the Galaxy Brain tier list going on.
Also suggested by Moonpill. Yep. So he is a purveyor of good suggestions.
Absolutely. He also just put another suggestion that would pair nicely with tonight's book. I will definitely give that one a look. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So if it's along the same vein, hey, I'm here for it all day. And then, yeah, you're also saying not up to anything else when you're going on up there where you don't go outside much. That was in reference to our Canadian hockey players there. Also coming in with the New Vegas love. There you go. Will, are you a Fallout guy?
Oh, fuck yeah, bro. Fuck yeah, I love me some Fallout. Go ahead.
Have you been watching the Amazon Prime series? I think it's on season 2 now.
I am almost done with catching up on season 2, but like I was much more like it is not as bad as I thought it would be. I'm quite impressed. I thought that, it would be some Hollywood drivel and some bullshit, and like there's like a bit of the what do you call it, the like the Hollywood putting in their fluff. Like there's quite a bit of like you go girl kind of stuff in it, but it's nowhere near as saturated as I had supposed. And I really do love the gritty, gory, like no holds barred stuff that they do with it. So yeah, it is quite fantastic. My mother even has started watching it, and I love my mother. She knows nothing about video games. She just started watching the Fallout series, and she's like, I like this a lot. And it's like, what? My mom gets to like partake in the video game culture, same as me. I thought that was super cool. So shout out to Christine Stevenson, Seal, of the author of How to Avoid Trouble with the IRS, which is another one of the books that we've covered in the book club.
There you go. It's a good one, which, by the way, might be rather relevant because we are coming up on tax season, by the way.
Oh, I already did mine, dude. Super simple.
Attaboy. There you
Bro,
go.
It's scary simple how easy it is to do taxes on Cash App nowadays. I did my taxes in 15 minutes. It was
Really?
fucking nuts, man. Yeah, I took a picture of my W-2, a physical picture of it, and it was like, all right, that's it. You want to file for state? And I'm still a Washington State resident, unfortunately. But like when it comes to taxes, it's really nice because there is no income tax for Washington State. So it was just super easy. It was like, bim, bam, boom, done. I didn't even bother doing any crypto things. So we'll see how that turns out on the on the flip side. I might one of my techniques that I think I'm gonna go for is I think I might file a FOIA request with the IRS and be like, hey, what do you have on me? I want to know what you guys know so that way I can pay it and be a good citizen.
That's actually not a terrible strategy.
Yeah, and you can legit call up the IRS and request the stuff that they have on you. Now they won't offer it. You have to like go and search it out. But this is one of the things that I've like since I've just been like going autistic as crazy, following Brandon Joe Williams and like learning all the things he has to teach. This is one of the techniques you can do if you want to like be a good citizen and instead of a non-citizen national of the United States, like a state citizen as opposed to a federal citizen. Anyways, that's a whole thing. A thing you can do is you can request the information from the IRS because they already have it, which is why they audit people, is because they're like, hey, our thing doesn't match up with your thing. It's basically just a big compliance game. So you could just say, hey, I want to go to you and get the information you have. So tell me what you got on me and I'll happily pay it. And if they don't like, if they're not aware of crypto, whatever the hell stuff, then it's like, hey, they're not aware of crypto, whatever the hell stuff. So Cool.
True. By the way, Moonpill says Coinly made it real easy. I also use Coinly, although Coinly is the issues I've run into with Coinly is that it's very good from the crypto side, but when you try to plug it into any other software, like I also use TurboTax in conjunction with it, sometimes it's like, I don't have a cost basis for these things when you're like getting staking rewards, or when we had like Pulse Chain launch. It was like, you had a token that was worth 0, you got a lot of it, and now it's not worth 0. I need help here. And I'm like, all right, I'll go enter in the numbers manually. It wasn't too bad. Depends how much trading you do. If you do a lot, then Godspeed.
Well, yeah, and like it's just gonna be a big, gigantic, long sheet. That's all that it is. One of the old techniques for filing, and this is something that my mom advises to her clients as well, is file early, file often, and file on paper. Because
Yes, sir.
the more that you saturate their system like earlier, the more likely you are to get, resolution. And if you wait, and if you delay, and if you do it electronically, then like electronically is also kind of faster. But if you file on paper, then you have like there's receipt of ownership stuff that's all with it anyways, and they can't like fudge with stuff. So, but yeah, we've also got some more chats that have rolled in
That
here.
we do,
Mr.
yes,
Zenith
sir.
has started starring some.
Mr. Slide 180 stopping in here with the cheers. Good to see you, sir. Always a pleasure.
Cheers, broski.
Moonpilled was also saying he stopped watching Transformers after Megan Fox left. Hear me out. I do think the series started going downhill with the third movie. Still pretty good, but I think the first two just had that magic.
Yeah,
but might have been Megan Fox. Who knows?
Well, it's like when part of the brand is sex appeal, and then they remove the sex appeal, and it's like, oh well. I mean, you lost a big chunk of like your audience's appreciation. Like, look, guys, nothing wrong with sex appeal. Sex sells. It's a very real thing. So, like, if you're gonna have it and then take it away, then yeah, people might not like it very much.
Fair. Alrighty, Arceus, I guess this is for me possibly the most important hockey advice ever. Air out your equipment after use. Yes, already on that, because yeah, like I said, you sweat by the gallon. It's ridiculous. So you gotta let it air out. But kind of gets awkward when you're trying to figure out which room in your house to do that in. And then, unless you're just praying that it's always sunny outside. So
well, if you air it out in the cold, one of the things that I learned from a friend of mine, if you air out your smelly stuff in the cold, then the bacteria that produces the scent of the stink and stuff will like basically get destroyed in the cold. And so like airing your stuff out in the cold is much more effective than airing it out in the sun. Fun fact. And
fair enough.
And if you really want to, then you could just have a dedicated space in your house that can be your like temporary ozone room, and you can set up an ozone machine in there, and like don't spend a lot of time in there while the ozone machine is running, because ozone is not healthy for you, because it destroys carbon-based molecules. But yeah, ozone machines are fantastic for removing smell from everything. I have one in my truck for when I carried a litter box around with me everywhere with Mr. Kitty while he was rolling around, and I've got like 2 or 3 of them that I keep with me on my travels. They're just like, you plug it into the wall, you let it run for 2 hours, and you can't smell anything anymore. It removes all scents. So super fantastic. But yeah, absolutely air out the equipment. Do it in the cold, do it in the warm. Anything works.
I'll figure it out. We'll get something going.
I believe it was Dr. Alan Chen that said that dilution is the solution for most things regarding like medical and cleanliness. Yeah, dilution is the solution. So when you air something out, you're basically diluting the smell with air. It's like you're mixing in all the condensed stinky air with all the copious amount of unstinky air, and so it just dissipates and all that. Same thing with like washing your hands. When you wash your hands, you're diluting, like the bad stuff doesn't go away. It's just like there's more water than there is bad stuff, and so it gets like washed down the drain, and now there's less bad stuff, and it's higher parts or lower parts per million sort of thing.
True. Alrighty, last one here. Moonpill saying, guys, who wants to go to Good Springs with me when we head out for the next meetup? Apparently, there is a Fallout bar there.
Ooh.
Hear me out. This sounds like a good time. Lord knows we don't really do a whole lot in the day aside from sleep in and nurse the hangovers. So yeah, I'm down as long as it's not too far away.
I'm down. I'm down. I don't know how far Good Springs is. I've traveled through Prim before on my way to LA out of Vegas, and Prim was pretty cool. I remember that's the place with all the roller coaster rides where you have to go to like the not like the Bonnie and Clyde museum thing that's in the New Vegas place. I think it's Vinny and Vince or Vinny and Vance or whatever.
Oh,
But
47 minutes? Yeah, easy.
Yeah. I'm totally down. I'm totally down to go to a Fallout bar when we do the Vegas meetup. So let's fucking do
Let's
it, bro.
do it. Let's do
Let's
it.
fucking do it.
Alrighty. Speaking of things we got to do, we actually got to do the show. So,
Oh yeah, we have a book.
Yes, we do. We have a book here. Alrighty. Quick summary for you guys. How to Think Like Socrates. It reconstructs the life and philosophy of Socrates by combining historical accounts with practical philosophical lessons. The book shows how Socrates used questioning, dialogue, and rational examination to challenge assumptions about knowledge, morality, and society. Rather than presenting philosophy as an abstract theory, the author frames Socrates as a practitioner of intellectual discipline whose goal was to help people live better lives through self-examination and pursuit of virtue. The central theme of the book is that wisdom begins with recognizing one's ignorance and then rigorously testing beliefs through dialogue and reason. Socrates' method, persistent questioning of definitions, beliefs, and moral claims, became the foundation of Western philosophy and remains applicable today for examining personal beliefs, ethical responsibilities, and civic duty. There you go. Yes, the book also does a pretty good job, like the summary said there, of not just trying to give you the abstract about it, but actually giving you a good narrative to follow. It kind of does one of those like start at the end, then flashback through the rest of the life thing. So you start off with Socrates, who was famously put to death through a trial and then drinking hemlock. And then we flash back to the beginning, starting off in the journey early at the job site. His friends are like, you're much better at talking than you are at building stuff on the job site here. So maybe you should go do that. But thankfully, like Will said, the guy had a benefactor. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I got you. This is going to be much more lucrative. But even then, Socrates definitely lived as a very, very poor man, was not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. And then from there, goes on. We meet some very, very important historical figures. Gosh, I can't remember the one dude's name, the hero who actually fights. It's like
it's like I want to say Atreides, but I know that's wrong.
It's not Atreides. No, it is not the Duke of Arrakis. That's a good one though. Oh my gosh.
Doesn't matter what his name is. Moving on. He's a cool guy.
Alcibiades. Yeah.
Okay.
The guy pretty much follows up the Athens' second or first great, like real hero and general and leader that they had. He met him as a young kid, kind of groomed him, became a student, and then he sees him throughout life, and they actually both are in the military at the same time. Socrates actually saves his life on their very first deployment, effectively. And then later on, the guy has the opportunity to repay Socrates back and save his life as well. So that's a pretty cool story, but it's also critical because the time of the book is set around in, or rather Socrates' life is back in Greece, primarily right around the fall of Athens. This is following both, or it happens during both the Persian and Peloponnesian Wars. The Persian Wars is pretty much all of the Greek peninsula realizing that, hey, you're a Greek, I'm a Greek, we're neighbors, we like each other, we like not dying. What if we work together to beat off the Persians who seemed unstoppable? They said, yep, let's do that. And then afterwards, they beat back the Persians, and then the Peloponnesian Wars, Athens and Sparta, who teamed up, were like, I don't know, my neighbor's getting a little too uppity over there, flexing all this military power he gained after that last war. And then ultimately they go to war against each other. And at the end of the day, Athens does lose to Sparta, partly due to what we're going to talk about in the book, which is that Athens kind of goes through a decline and almost a civil war throughout the Peloponnesian Wars. And largely what that is due to do with is that there's kind of the rise of the sophists, or the orators, as opposed to the philosophers. And it really has this, I think, iconic moment of breakdown in democracy, which is that the people in power, or the people pursuing power, stopped pursuing kind of what was rational and logical and more what was practical or well argued. So it less became about seeking truth, which Socrates was about, and more about making good arguments and trying to convince people of things. And then ultimately that leads in democracy to a little bit of the popular vote, aka mob rule. And then that's where things kind of really rolled downhill. So that is pretty much the summary for it. Will, what were your, did you enjoy the book?
Yeah, and I listened to it a couple times and I ran it through a couple different AI like filters and things. And I gotta say, like the best consumption is just the listening to it. My favorite part is definitely when they were speaking about the difference between the rhetoric people and the philosophy people. That was definitely my favorite part of the book is delineating the difference between orators and philosophers, people that basically, orators being like people that are really good at speaking, really good at evoking emotion, the hypnotists, if you will. And then also the philosophers, which are the people that are really good at, pursuing ideas, pursuing thought. And I think that the best that a person can be is a combination of the two. If you focus all your strength on being an orator and you skip over the philosophy, then you're just basically like a kid with dynamite. And then if you focus on all your time on philosophy without ever learning oration or oratory skill or like marketing, basically, then your ideas die with you and they don't make the world a better place. So the that part of the book was really cool for me, is because not everybody that can speak well is a good person. And one of the last things that I wrote in the note section of the Telegram was one of the quotes that they had in there, which is like, a person who's like good at oration and uses it for evil or something, and then like that evil goes unpunished, that's basically just like a burden and a curse on everyone. Whenever evil goes unpunished, it's basically just like a plague that never gets fixed. Whenever something bad happens and a person gets punished for it, the punishment isn't like, it's suffering in the short term, but it's correcting a very big and real long-term problem. And so punishment is actually return to goodness. That's what punishment is supposed to be, good and just punishment. When there's like unjust punishment, then it's just, the extension of evil. So people should be excited for punishment. People should be excited for, like, both when it's applied to them and when it's applied to other people, on the principle that it's basically like we're fixing a large problem here with endowing punishment. And his speech, I think he was talking to Pythagoras or maybe
I
someone
think
different. I can't recall
it was a
exactly, but
handful of folks, but it's one
yeah,
of the noted like dialogues of Socrates. In
yeah,
particular, he's talking to the soldier guy, Acrobiades, and
hmm
this is right before they're going off on a campaign. This is the second of the talks, pretty much, that's in there, and Socrates is pretty much asking him the question like, is it better to be a tyrant that's brought to justice or live out the rest of your life as a tyrant? And Socrates is kind of arguing in this case against self-interest. He's saying that like if you truly are pursuing wisdom and justice, it is better to be brought to justice than be able to live out your life however you want as a tyrant. And then
hmm
obviously the knee jerk reaction is, what are you talking about? If you can be a tyrant and suffer no repercussions, that sounds better than being like, put to death in the most horrific way that they had at the time. But it's kind of a misframing there, or your goals aren't in alignment, because what Socrates is talking about is being a philosopher. And what the other argument really was is that it's talking about kind of like self-interest, practical advice on how to live and, not die brutally at the stake, that kind of thing. So if your goal is to live virtuously in the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom, then having justice done upon you is ultimately better because you have a correction in the deficient action, as opposed to
yes.
just living a pleasurable life.
And it breaks down into like immediate gratification versus delayed gratification. Does the individual, suffer or not, versus like does society and humanity as a whole suffer or not? And it's like, of course we want to be selfish and live our best lives, but occasionally, we have to undergo terrible, horrible things in order for the rest of the world to correct itself and, people to live on. It's like the whole, that's why like there's a lot of stories in human culture that glorify, the firefighter who gives his life to save the child or something in the burning building, or the private who jumps on the grenade so that the staff sergeant can, write him up for a medal of honor later on or something like that.
Yeah.
But like the glorification of sacrifice and like the doing the difficult thing that sucks for you at the betterment of everyone. That's why like stories are told of all these great and wonderful things. It's because like deep in our genes or something, we know that that's like the heroic thing to do, and that's the stuff that like as a society, as a culture lives on. Those ideas become mimetic and they live and thrive. It's as opposed to like the barbaric parts of the world where there is less culture, where there is less like working togetherism. It's more, hedonism and immediate gratification and chasing after the thing that makes me feel good and solves my problems at the detriment to everyone else. Those things don't live on because there's less longevity in those sorts of places. So, anyways, that was the cool thing that I like, and that's one of the conversations that we're going to be covering at one of these. But
Yes.
you had said you wanted to cover 3 of them, right?
I actually got 4.
Oh, you got 4. Oh, what was?
4.5.
I want to turn your question back on to you. What
real
was
quick.
your favorite?
Go ahead. This is a really good jumping off point for a preface, though. So Socrates really is the first deviation when it comes to human philosophy between humans are meant to survive versus Socrates poses that humans are meant to reason or ration. That's the big differentiation. This is kind of the big stepping point from here that really starts to build on moral philosophy. Because, like, going back to the analogy that we brought up there, is it better to live out as a tyrant unpunished or to be punished as a tyrant? The difference is that if you live out unpunished, you're fulfilling the goal of survival, of procreation, passing on genes and stuff. Socrates is posing it from the idea that, no, if you are a human and the thing that makes us special is that we have the ability to reason and rationalize things, then you should reasonably look for justice in the pursuit of living a moral and fulfilling life. So that's really where we make this first departure. And that's kind of a bit of the background for this whole book. And then in addition, Socrates arrives at this differentiation without religion, which is also one of the other massive, massive factors. Because at the time, still lives in the Greek tradition, which is pretty much they have a pantheon of gods. And the way that the gods or the humans view the gods in this world is that the gods just are. They are the things, they are nature, they do what they do. They think that the gods cause thunder and the harvest and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's in reverence to the gods. It's not like I have a mission from them to fulfill, but it's more of like I'm living in their world. If I don't pay tribute to them and respect them, then I will be punished, that kind of stuff. So this really is kind of the basis of moral philosophy that removes religious calling or some sort of like higher power outside of it. It's really, it's kind of the basis for what's called natural law theory, which is that you're going off of what is good in nature and trying to figure out how to promote human flourishing, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Alrighty. Tell you what.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, good jumping off point there. I got 2 parts that I really liked and I think are possibly the most interesting parts of the book for me. Yes. Number 1 is Socrates' most famous dialogue, which is talking about what is good, what makes something good, and what is the purpose of living. The second one is the trial of Socrates, which is seen as highly controversial, or some people might look at him and be like, he is autistic. He is a moron. He is an idiot, an utter maroon. Because in the trial, he is still sticking to his guns and his moral philosophy. It's like he's brought up on these charges at the fall of the civilization when he kind of pissed off a lot of people in the past. And they're like, you know what? Screw you, man. We've had enough of you. We're just going to get rid of you. And then during the trial, they're expecting him to like beg and plead for his life. But instead, he actually kind of like messes with the people that are trying him. And in this case, it's 500 jurors that are citizens of Athens and also people of the proletariat effectively. And he's kind of antagonizing them. And then he's found convicted. And they're like, all right, well, we got to find a punishment for you. And they're like, well, we say death. What do you say? And he says, seems like you should condemn me to live in the house of the Olympians and eat their meals. And they're just like, the fuck did you just say?
Yeah. He said, for the folks at home, he said, your punishment for me is you should give me the same reward that is given to like the athletes that fucking win the games and shit. So shit was hilarious. So
yeah,
and then it was because it was close to a tie or something.
It was allegedly. Keep in mind, the final note at the end of the book is like, by the way, the life of Socrates was written down by Plato and some of his other students. It's kind of unsure if these things actually happened, but they're also philosophers themselves that are trying to teach moral lessons, and Socrates was the guy that talked to them, so they had to write down his stuff. They may have also put some narrative spin on it a little bit, but yes, according to the book, the end result for guilty versus not guilty was 220 out of 500 for not guilty and 280 for guilty. So cut it close there. And then ultimately, yeah, they said, nope, hemlock for you. We've had enough of this.
And now you gotta die. You've spoken too much. Yeah, and so that was an example of the orators winning over the philosophers.
This one is a very interesting point of debate even today, which is that was Socrates actually sticking to his mandate, or did he kind of finally have a crack at the armor and was just like, I'm dying anyways, screw you guys?
I'm sorry, what was that? I was typing a thing to the prompt.
Oh, you're
Can you
good.
repeat that?
No, the verdict in the trial of Socrates is something that's even hotly debated today, which is like, based on what was going on, assuming it's true, was this Socrates actually sticking to his guns and his moral philosophy, or is this him kind of having a crack in the armor or one last hurrah because like he knows he's gonna die and he's just like, whatever, screw you guys, I'm out.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that you know, to I would say that he went out on his principles and also making fun of everyone. So a little bit of a man after my own heart. I appreciate that. If you're gonna, one of the things he also said in the book is like, if you're gonna die, and you know you're gonna die, and like you can struggle and still lose, then like maybe you shouldn't struggle and still lose and suffer twice. Like maybe you should just accept your fate and be like, you know what, this is what it is. My last moments, like I'm in control, as opposed to like I'm just proving over and over and over again that someone else is in control. It was like the I think the analogy he gave is like if you're the rabbit in the talons of the eagle and it's already picked you up, way up in the air, and like you struggling would only result in you falling to your death anyways, then like you're going to suffer more if you sit there wriggling around after you're already like in the place. It's like, be calibrated to your surroundings, I suppose. But yeah,
well, the
I
great
don't know. What do
irony
you
is
think?
people would argue that he was not calibrated to his surroundings in that moment in particular.
Yeah, could have been, but like he's fucking trolling him. So I appreciate the trolling. At least that's how I interpret it. Maybe it wasn't the right call, but he certainly got marketing as a result of his decision. So
That he did. Part of kind of like the two faces of Socrates, especially at the time, he was a very controversial figure because he was really the first one that was going with the idea of like, we should, question everything, even the things that we believe to know is true. Like, let's question it to like dig down to the source, the root, the principle, whatever it is, in order to identify that and then extrapolate it instead of just assume that this broad thing is true. As a result of that, some people thought that he was just mocking them the entire time by just being like, why, explain, why. But the Socratic method is built on examining, trying to deconstruct to get to the root, and then extrapolate from there. And then in a moment like the trial, there, it's like, are you actually deconstructing, or are you kind of just playing the heel like they want you to be, and you're just leaning into it? It's like, who knows?
I mean, I don't. I wasn't there. Part of me wonders if I was there, would I be on the side of the crowd, or would I be on the side of Socrates at the point? Because like I know for a fact that I am a sucker for a good argument. So like, if someone says something that's like emotionally appealing, I'm like, oh hell yeah, fuck yeah, dude. But then, like on the flip side, I'm also pretty. I know my limits, Zenith. All right, I know where I stand. I'm also pretty like inclined to enjoy philosophy and things. So I don't know what side I would fall in. But if I see him being a troll, it's like, oh, this guy's a fucking G. Hell yeah.
Fair enough. And by the way, Moonpill saying, well, all these laters were here talking about him and not any of those 500 other people. So who really won in the end?
Yeah. Yeah. That was another thing that Socrates talked about is like, we don't remember poets because of their children. We remember the poets because of their poetry. And their poetry is the child that lives forever. The ideas, the thoughts, the processes, their work. You know, it's like if I produce a human baby and the human baby makes the world better for 60 to 80 years, and it's like, okay, that's pretty neat. That's like 60 to 80 years of progress. People don't generally remember folks for the people they create. Discounting like mothers and grandmothers and stuff. That's super awesome. And like you've got a babushka who's got a huge ass family of like 30 something grandchildren that are all out there making the world a better place and things. But like when it comes to philosophers and creators and people that build systems and stuff, it's like people remember the system. People know the Rockefeller name because of like the big oil. People know the Rothschilds name because of the fantastically huge banking industry and finance industry that they created. People know about the Medicis because they ran Italy for generations and generations. It's not the individual person was a great swordsman. It's that like it's the things that they created, the systems that lived on longer than they did. Like here we are talking about the Socratic method. The Socratic method is way more immortal than Socrates was, and so it's really cool to be able to create something that people use for like forever. So that's pretty nifty. The other 500 people, all that they did was kill the guy, and it's like, nobody remembers them. All you did was kill the man.
I don't think at the time they knew like how important Socrates is going to be, because in today's day and age, like looking back at ancient history, he kind of slots in there right between Achilles, Odysseus, and Marcus Aurelius, which is two mythological heroes, and then arguably the greatest Roman emperor of all time. And it's like we have just a philosopher in there as well. It's like he did something massive, and I don't know if they quite understood it when they were trying him for everything. I think it's kind of just like what I talked about earlier, just trying to survive. And they thought that survival of Athens means got to get rid of the Socrates guy.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
We got to get rid of him. He is he is in our way.
Exactly. Alrighty, tell you what, let's jump into the first one here. So this comes from one of the first dialogues and one of the most famous ones. It is around what is a man's purpose, aka virtue and the care of your own soul. Pretty much, Socrates believed that the purpose of human life was care and improvement of the soul. He didn't really talk about wealth, reputation, and power. He knew that these things existed and he recognized what they were, but he kind of also had a bit of an idea, which is like, these things are the way they are. Don't concern yourself about like achieving wealth and power. Concern yourself with about cultivating your own soul. And then if you live a good life, good outcomes will happen. One of the questions I actually was trying to look up before this was, what's Socrates' view on like predestination? Which is like, does he believe that like people are predestined for this thing? And a lot of the answers I got was like, he would just outright reject the question. He would be like, who cares? That's not important. It's not in your control. Kind of the pre-stoic stoic here of like, I am in control of the things I'm in control. Those things I am not in control of. So I'm gonna worry about me.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of gets us to the point of, okay, what does it mean to like cultivate your soul or achieve the highest good, because it shapes your moral character and purpose? To get to this, he pretty much used the Socratic method to boil down to justice, courage, and wisdom. Pretty much the concepts that he came up for this one was that justice is pretty much just fairness, or not equality, not by any stretch of the imagination, but just treating other people well, being treated well back. I want to say the golden rule is mentioned by the book. I can't remember if it says that he's the originator of it or if it just uses him as an example of it. But a lot of what justice is fairness and that idea of like equality under the law, kind of getting what's due to you. If you do a wrong, you either have to repent, repay, or have some repayment of yours, whether it's fines, jail, death in certain cases, ironically his, that kind of stuff. Second one was courage. Pretty much having courage is something that was universally recognized amongst the time, and absolutely one of the things that they revered, because again, Achilles was the guy that every little boy wanted to grow up to be. And well, what was Achilles famous for outside of just being a warrior? Well, it was courage first. But ultimately, he kind of boils courage down to, well, courage is experiencing fear and then trying to overcome it. But he also balances out with saying that a foolish man, like, can a foolish man be courageous? And the answer is not really, because part of being courageous is knowing that the fear exists. But if you're a fool, you don't know that the danger exists, or you don't have a correct estimation. Therefore, what you're doing is foolish instead of courageous. And then ultimately we get to what he deems is kind of the crown, the pinnacle of all of them, which is wisdom. Wisdom is the thing that governs all of it, because you can't have justice without wisdom, and you can't have courage without wisdom. Wisdom, in the Socratic sense on this one, comes from knowledge primarily. And knowledge in his case, as I've mentioned plenty of times on the show, is that he boils it down to two things, which is there's information and experience, and you have to combine both to know it. One of the other famous axioms that he has is that when he's talking to Acrobiades, I think, he's like, why are you worried about things? And the guy responds that I'm worried about things because I don't know about these things. He's like, okay, are you worried about the sun hitting the earth? And he's like, no, I know that I know nothing about that. So why would I worry about that? He's like, okay, here. So being a fool doesn't mean that you're worried about things that you don't. Being a fool doesn't mean that you don't worry about anything. But at the same time, it seems that most of the people that end up being foolish or unwise try to act like they know what they don't actually know. They try to act like they have the wisdom without having the wisdom, whether they're book learners or whether they're people experiencing that have experience without being able to describe them. That ultimately is what is defined as knowledge and cultivates, kind of is the culmination of wisdom at the end of it. There we go. So additionally, out of this one, we also get an interesting posit from Socrates. He would definitely fall into the camp that people are primarily good or benevolent as opposed to primarily evil. The reason he arrives at this one is saying that because wisdom is required to do good, if you don't have wisdom, or rather, the logical train of thought is that if you had wisdom, you would know that it is in your best interest and in the interest of everything else to do good. Therefore, if you're doing evil and you're doing it rationally, then it means that you must believe that it is good. Therefore, is it actually evil or is it just foolishness?
Yeah.
What do you think about that one? Because that's kind of a big differentiator that we argue even today, which is like, are people good? Are people evil? Does that even exist? Like, what's going on here?
Well, I mean, nothing is good or bad, but that we think it's so. Which is, Shakespeare, which comes from, I think, something earlier in this book, which is like events aren't bad. People get angry and upset or happy and joyous because of their ideas about events, not because of the events themselves. It's all based on the interpretation. If I don't know that like there's a bunch of people murdered right next to me, then I'm not going to be upset about it. And if I find out that the 100 people that are murdered are all my family, then I'll be very angry. And if I find out that they're my enemies that were trying to kill my family, then I'm going to be very happy. And it's like it's the same event. So like everything is defined by the subjective interpretation of the prospect of the interpreter, of the viewer, whatever you want to call it. So like, are there evil people? Are there good people? I think that there's just people that are trying to do things, and it's a matter of, do they understand everything about what they're doing? Like, what are the known knowns? What are the known unknowns? What are the unknown knowns? And what are the unknown unknowns? So the more that people can cancel out thing in the known unknowns, as far as like things to worry about, like the better off they are. The more that they question themselves even on the things that they do know, and seek expert guidance from the people regarding the things that they don't know, then probably the safer and better it's going to be. But the people that are just like stuck in the idea of like, oh, I'm certainly doing the best thing and there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and I know everything about what I'm doing, then it's like, oh, well, that's the hubris that gets people in trouble, like oftentimes. So I don't. Am I answering your question, or am I kind of dancing around it here? What was your question, Z?
Are people? Does evil exist? Are people good? Are they bad?
Sure, evil exists, and yeah, people are good and bad, because it is my position to interpret what they do as good or bad based on me, and likewise for you. If I'm the only person that exists on a planet, then there is no good or bad, because I'm the only one that does, and I get to decide, is it good or is it bad? It's like, once you start introducing other people, then it's like, that which is good for your neighbor might be bad for your enemy, or vice versa, the same thing. So it's all subjective, and you have to as the prospect, or as the sender, as the salesperson, or as the receiver, you have to determine like whose opinions are important to me. Are my opinions more important than the people that I'm trying to influence? Are their opinions more than this other group? You have to do this cost benefit analysis sort of thing, and all of it's just a repetitive cycle and repetitive loop. So, yeah, people are good is the simple answer, and yeah, people are bad because I decide it to be so. Uh, but I don't know. I think that's kind of a tricky question. What do you think? I'm going to turn it back on you. Your own question.
I think that people are inherently neither, but that they have capacity for either one. And that ultimately what you kind of end up as your mental framework will put you down a certain path, but it's also based on perspective. Because you can definitely convince yourself that you're doing good, but in other people's eyes, you might be doing evil. The ultimate measuring stick in this one is whether or not you choose to believe that there is something outside of yourself that is that ultimate measuring stick. And I think that Socrates does a very good job of starting the basis of philosophical thought. But I think that philosophical thought really fully develops once we kind of get around to religion coming into the world and getting the idea that because getting the idea that there is some sort of creator or higher power that is the ultimate sacred, that is the thing that gives the dictate of what is good and evil. Because if you go based on just what Socrates is talking about here, then you can ultimately kind of reason yourself into doing anything as long as you can provide a logical chain of thought. In fact, one of the famous dialogues he has, he actually talks about the idea of utilitarianism, which is like, okay, so should we pursue things that ultimately maximize pleasure and minimize pain? And if that's the case, then how do we start doing the calculus on this? How do we start doing the math? Do we start executing one person in an arena for the pleasure of thousands? Where does that fall into it? And I think that a lot of what we've seen out of history since this time period where we are now is that when you combine the rational thought that Socrates pioneered here in conjunction with religious ideas that human beings have near infinite value from a moral standpoint, and that the cultivation of self and cultivation of justice are both important from both kind of the idea of your soul and then also the idea of like reasoning and rationality. So there you go. You're not evil, but you can convince yourself to be evil. And also, because we now know that human beings definitely exist on the bell curve, you're going to get the outliers where you get the people that just like genuinely enjoy causing harm and damage and carnage to the world and others. And it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure I can point at that and be like, yes, that is evil. It exists, but that is a path that they went down mostly due to temperament, I would argue. But at the same time, there are choices that are made all along the way.
There's probably something having to do with like hedonism and selfishness and immediate gratification versus delayed gratification. I am fairly positive that that's all involved in there some way somehow. We have some comments here that I wanted to address before we got too far. We've got Mr. Moondog has rock and rolled on in. Both Socrates and his murders were eventually remembered as archetypes in the story. Again, not unlike, and he goes on to talk about Socrates and Jesus both canonically transcended their physical constraints to the metaphysical ideas in Platonic terminology at their trial and death. So it's like, yeah, that's a fascinating parallel to draw there. Moondog, I like that, amigo.
That it is.
And then also we've been joined by Mr. Diamond Hand Degenerate. Give me the 10,000x, and then I will worry about cultivating my soul. There's I know you're being funny.
Pavlov's hierarchy of needs first, eh? Understandable, sir.
Yeah, I do think that that's a. I understand he's being funny here, but I will say that like the idea of worrying about from like if I were to take his statement seriously, what I would say is like the idea of worrying about correcting yourself and all of your flaws and things until after you've already solved for a different thing. There's certainly something to be said for don't worry about reading books until you've built shelter to save you from the rainstorm. But I do think that we all live in a world of enough abundance that we can be doing small bits of work on ourselves every single day and fixing and making progress towards like cultivating the soul and being better. And just by doing that, you will surround yourself with other people that will bring in the opportunity to increase your wealth. It's like It's like by acting, by being healthy and seeking virtue and seeking truth and uh, pursuing all of the good things in life that are more investment than extraction, by creating instead of consuming, there's a whole lot more further creation that will come to bring the theoretical 10,000x. It's like not everybody's going to get lucky and hit the jackpot, my friend. And like if we're all waiting to hit the same jackpot, then it's like, is it gonna work? I don't fucking know. Speaking of the prices recently have been making us feel good in Pulse Chain. So I will say that that's kind of a nice feeling. But yeah, spot on, broski. Thank you, good sir. I do appreciate your humor. You're absolutely right. Yeah, we have been waiting too long for these 10,000 X's. But back to the topic at hand, Zenith. I wanna
I wanted to finish off kind of one of the chains of logic that Socrates goes down with regards to this first dialogue, which is when he's trying to figure out what is good or like what is worth pursuing. Kind of starts it off by observing basic humans. I mean, like, what do people pursue? And it's a lot of the basic stuff. It's like wealth, status, pleasure, power, success, money, women, all that kind of stuff. But he disagrees with this one, and he says, okay, what truly counts as good? Kind of starts whittling it down. Like, if you start removing these, which ones are the last ones to go? And then ultimately you kind of end up with stuff that is a lot more close to home, which is like good health, family, relations, the ability to think and do what you're meant to do, that kind of stuff. Ultimately, he's saying that the external goods are unreliable because you can't rely on this stuff as a guarantee. Because just because you try to accomplish whatever you can accomplish in your time frame, you're still limited by the time period that you live in, which is like, look, if you live as a neighbor to Genghis Khan, you can try to get as much wealth as you want, but at the end of the day, guess who's coming to take the rest of that wealth? Yeah, Genghis Khan's coming. Yep. And then from there, getting to pretty much saying that wealth, power, and strength are not inherently good, then their value depends on the judgment of the person using them. Okay, so just because you have these things doesn't even make it good. It depends on who you are as the person to do it well. And this is where you get the idea of wisdom or understanding as a really key determining factor coming in here. And then after that, he's saying that, okay, now that you have the wisdom, what is the good that is coming out of this? Well, it's the idea that you can act virtuously, basically being acting justly, having self-control, showing courage, and then not being beholden to your flesh and actually being able to think things out, aka ration or reason. And then this, go for it.
I was going to say, like, one of the important anecdotes that he told in the book was like, is a person with a sword like good or bad? And it's a question of like, is the person holding the sword competent, and do they have a sense of justice that they follow? So it's like, if they're holding the sword and they're incompetent, doesn't matter if they have a sense of justice. They're gonna be fucking all sorts of shit up. They're gonna be cutting themselves, cutting the people around them, whatever the hell. And if they don't have a sense of justice, then they're gonna be doing the wrong things with the sword, which is, also bad. The only time that it's good to like have power and have the stuff is when you have the justice, the sense of the justice, and then like, further down the line, the competence. Like, it's good to have the sword if you understand justice and you train into competence as you have the sword. But like, the first thing that people had ought to be learning is like virtue and justice, and getting those good core principles and characteristics and traits on lock before giving dynamite to children, sort of thing.
Makes sense. There you go. So pretty much the final part of this whole thing is that once you've cultivated wisdom and virtue, then you can live the good life. So pretty much the train of reasoning works out here, which is that humans seek what they believe is good. Your external goods can be used poorly if you don't know what to do with them. Therefore, correct usage requires wisdom. Wisdom produces virtuous behavior, and a virtuous soul leads to a good life. So based on that, pretty much the pinnacle of what you're shooting for is wisdom to be virtuous, to live a virtuous life, which is going to maximize, in Socrates' opinion, pretty much maximize the possible life that you could live. Because you have all the possibilities. This should point you towards what are the better options at the end.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
We do like to maximize better life.
That we do. All right. Final thing to come out of this one. We get the first true full picture of the Socratic method. So, Socratic method broken down into the following steps. Number 1, ask for a definition. Number 2, test your definition with questions. Try to find all the weird corner case scenarios, that kind of stuff. Number 3 is reveal the contradictions through your questioning. Number 4 is refine the idea down to the base principle. And then 5 is have some intellectual humility, which is understand that like you found this doesn't mean you found everything. Here we go.
I had a nice little graphic made up. Thanks, ChatGPT. So yeah, so it's not the exact words that you were using, but this is
the idea is the same though.
Yep, it's the same sort of concept. You know, you look, you question, you determine, you refine, and then you're like, am I totally right? Time to look again. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like the OODA loop. Shout out to all our military members out there.
There you go. Yeah. One interesting, or I guess very important note about this one is that the point of the Socratic method is not to just ask infinite questions. The point of the Socratic method is to hone in on what is the truth through rational dialogue, which is typically in everything that Socrates is described as have done, is that he is there to ask questions with other people. He is not there to give speeches. He is there to talk about ideas and really probe them. The goal is at the end, because remember, in your diagram there, the goal is to approach the truth. It is never arrive at the truth, but it is to approach the truth, meaning that it's slowly building on itself the entire way.
It's like it's more of a spiral than a circle. And as we chip away parts and parts and parts of the non-truth, you reduce the radius of the spiral and you slowly get closer to the center, not ever quite making it there. But by engaging with people, hopefully competent people, you further refine the idea, you further refine what is the truth. And it's very like, you know, scientific method and all that. But yeah,
it's almost like that's where that came from.
Yeah. Who would have thought the
scientific method from Socratic method? There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess as a little discussion point here, this pretty much does a very good job of describing the issue that I had at the very end of the book, Guide to the Most Beautiful Woman in the World, the USA, pretty much. When we got into the Picklitarians chapter, the idea that you want to constantly be questioning things, perpetually curious, yes, absolutely. But where I found that the book broke down is that it kind of doesn't finish the cycle that is the Socratic method. It just keeps going in a straight line, which is keep questioning, keep questioning, keep questioning, keep questioning. But it was kind of missing to me. This is a personal opinion and a judgment on my part, which is that I felt that it was asking questions for the sake of asking questions, not for the sake of approaching a truth or something that can be extrapolated from there. Which is that the book is I really like that book. It was fantastic. There were good principles, and all the principled stuff was what I really, really resonated with. When we got down towards the idea of like, we should always be asking questions and like keep asking questions to keep going. It's like, okay, are we asking questions for the sake of asking questions? Or are we trying to approach something that we can extrapolate and then bring back to the surface as a way to actually be useful?
Yeah. I will say one of the things that I appreciate a lot about Brennan's work, and perhaps he didn't do a very good job of explaining that in that particular piece of content that he created, but he is always making things, he is always putting out new courses, always putting out new litigation, and he is constantly churning out the things that he believes are very important in life, which specifically have to do with like the money system and the legal system and the way that people think about things. And so it's like, while it might not have come out in the book, I will say it certainly comes out in the rest of the work that he does.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with his religion. He's a Scientologist, and he does a really great job of explaining Scientology and all the common misconceptions and things. But it's fascinating to listen to him talk about the derivations of words and what is like the meaning of things. It's like, okay, so you think you know what the word, contract means. Okay, can you like explain what a contract is? Like, let's look at the old definitions. Where did the word come from? Like, what's its derivation? What is its history? What is the usage of it today? How was it used in the past? What is like the meaning that's assigned to it? What's the legal interpretation, which is a whole other, sort of thing. Like, what is the case law? What is the precedent? How much evidence is built up on just this one word that exists? And that most people just like kind of blunder through life, throwing words around, not really knowing their meanings and things. But it's like, I totally agree, Zenith. The end of the book was a little bit frustrating and a little bit out there. But I think that he more than makes up for it with the rest of his work. I do wish that the book ended a little bit better though.
Yeah, it was like, it was so close. It was so close. It was like 95%. And then it's just like, didn't quite make it, but
Yep.
that's all good.
But hey,
True.
his next book that he puts out probably going to be better if he continues doing the things that he's doing, which is part of the process. So maybe makes another book about more questioning. He's about to come out with his third course here pretty soon, probably this summer. So we'll see what goes on with that.
Very nice. Might have to take a look at that myself.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty.
I have a Telegram just dedicated to all of the information and all the PDFs. Like, you know how I make the PDFs for like streams and YouTube videos? Bro, I nerd the fuck out on the Pickleteria stuff. So if you guys want to check it out, it's t.me/Pickleteria. But that's an aside. We're doing a book club right now that's more important. So let's
Yes,
bring us back, Z.
Alrighty. On to our next kind of topic here. We're gonna get into your favorite here. The philosophers versus the orators. So
Excellent.
one of the key conflicts that was going on in the book is the rise of the sophists, a certain sect of the orators, which are people that are primarily focused with just speaking well, giving long speeches, no questions, just speeches, a lot of persuasion, a lot of that kind of stuff. The sophists were famous for using persuasion and debate for political success. They emphasize the ability to win arguments rather than discover truth. And Socrates frequently took issue with this one, arguing that persuasion without knowledge leads to poor decisions and moral corruption. Basically saying you're convincing people to do things without anyone knowing why they're doing certain things. And then ultimately this kind of gets to ahead in the story where the campaign that we talked about, where I'm going to keep butchering his name, Acrobiades, he goes out, they suffer a tragic defeat. And at this point, it was also, the decision was kind of made at the start of the rise of power of the sophists, who were like, yes, we need to do this, even though they were not in a great position. They took long to do it. They got way too many people involved for the decision making. And then at the same time, they're also kind of trying to pull a coup on Acrobiades because they didn't quite trust him. They thought he was going to become a tyrant, even though Acrobiades is, his little story in the book is like, he was a kid who had the world's expectations on him, and he got with Socrates and he's like, I want to be just. I don't want to just be perceived as just. I want to be just. And ultimately, because he did that and tried to really stick to the principles, the sophists, who were kind of just vying for power and what they thought was the correct decision, ended up butting heads with him. So at this point, we kind of get to the fall of Athens, which is that we're getting towards civil war territory. There are rebel factions that are rising up. We get to the era of the 30 tyrants, which is that at the end of the Peloponnesian War, when Athens is defeated ultimately, places in chaos, the 30 tyrants kind of come to power, rally enough people together to get some sort of semblance of a populace going. And then they, as they do, they rule with a tyrannical fist. So the big one from this one is that inside of the book, Socrates outright rejects the idea that he needs to be an orator. Acrobiades says, I need to be just, and I also need to be an orator so people will listen to me. And then there's the other side, which ultimately got power at some point and put Socrates to the sword, or the hemlock rather, which is saying that, no, I am the greatest speaker, therefore that makes me fit to rule. What did you see as the pros and cons of all these different groups as we were going through the book?
Well, I mean, I would say that the pros and cons lies with the guy who's like, hey, I need to understand justice and be a good orator. I think that that's the best place to live in, is because, you know, like I said earlier, if you focus too much on one side or the other, then you become ineffective at the combination, which is necessary if you want to be a good leader, or if you want to change the world, or if you want to do things and like create, I suppose. If you're just going to focus on,
if I remember his story arc correctly, he becomes a great general, gets exiled because they think he has too much power and might be a tyrant. And then in the moment of need, they bring him back as a general to fix their terrible situation. And then ultimately they exile him again in the era of the 30 tyrants.
Yep. Yeah. So he saves the day when it's time. And look, just because you might be the best person doesn't mean that you get the glory or that you get the results. You know, it is important to not only have the good ideas and the good products, but also do good marketing and also make people feel something. You know, a lot of that can be said as being very relevant in the cryptocurrency space, especially in Hexico. There's a lot of there's many people that say that there's a lot of, like, you know, just bad producing or bad marketing or bad everything going on in the pulse chain space. And it's like, yeah, you need to not only create good products, you have to make people feel good. You have to make people want to buy them. You have to make people appreciate the sort of stuff. And if you're only making good things and you're not doing the marketing for it, or if you're only doing the marketing and you're not making good things, like one is a big beautiful pile of fluff that is meaningless, and the other is like a bunch of cool things that no one gives a fuck about because they don't know and they don't care. So
Yeah.
like you have to make them know and you have to make them care in addition to making the good shit. So like if you're deficient in any of those things, then the world doesn't change and become better, and people don't buy cool things and people don't do awesome stuff. So it is definitely like um there needs to be a happy balance with all of it. And sometimes, the people that make the good stuff, they get outmarketed by other people, and it's like, well, fuck, I guess the scammers win this time. And everybody suffers for a short period of time until they realize those guys are scammers, and then they put to the sword, and then we try again. And in this dude's case, he tried to be the best leader, the best general, and the best orator, and he ultimately lost to someone who was better in the oratory field. And you know, like when the people were in need, they're like, "Oh shit, we better go get him." And then he lost the oratory again. So it's like the lesson there is he just did not become good enough at rhetoric, or there was just somebody else who was better. And so it's like we'll often get this in politics. You'll find people that are really, really good at maneuvering a crowd. This is part of the danger of democracy, is when you give too many people the ability to vote and to affect franchise power, then like the more people you give ability to, the higher likelihood that you're giving dynamite to children. You're giving power to people who should not be wielding power because they probably don't have wisdom, they probably don't have knowledge. And the more people that have the ability to make decisions, the worse off you're going to get, and the more of a popularity contest and bread and circuses it's going to become. So I suppose they saw that in Greece, and then they unfucked themselves for a short period of time and hired Homie to go and be the best general and whatnot. Like, so I don't know. What are your thoughts? Am I?
No, I think you're onto it perfectly. There's a handful of ways to take it, but real quick, when I analyze the characters in the story, Socrates, not an orator, was a philosopher.
Yes.
As a result, he didn't have much impact on his society, his state, his city state, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But at the same time, he is still by far the most famous of them because he discovered something that was true and eternal, and something that could definitely be built on for the rest of humankind, which is massive.
And I do think that other people marketed his stuff for him. So
Agreed.
but like if he'd had all these great things and the message never spread, then like it would all be a moot point. So that thing got sorted. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're entirely correct though, which is like he didn't market himself. A lot of what happened was that other people marketed him directly or indirectly. He became definitely famous for being a guy that people either thought was very profound or just pissed them off to no end. Because what he did is he questioned everything, and when you question everything, including people get pretty pissed when you start pointing out irregularities or things in areas where they're wrong. As a result, his rise to fame kind of was through notoriety, but also a cult following at the same time, which is that a lot of people didn't like him, but there were some people that heard of him that were either, I want to get rid of this guy, or in his case, I think he had a degree of luck to him, which is like there were enough people in the society at the time that were like, this guy might be onto something. Like important people that were like, he might be onto something. I want to hear what he has to say. And that worked out in his favor in this case.
Yeah.
Acrobiades, our general guy, I think that he was a good orator, which helped him be a leader of men. It also helped him argue his points when it came to the political, and also help him understand the philosophical as well. Because that was something he wanted to figure out, but he also wanted to be great for Athens and to help make Athens great and actually like survive and thrive in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Sophists ended up pretty much achieving everything they wanted to achieve, but they also got everything that they deserved as well, which is that you could chalk it up to the fact that it was the times that they're in, which is that they lost a war. They were going through plague, famine effectively. Their neighbors just kicked their butts, took their stuff, dismantled their giant wall that ran from Athens to their port city, which for the time, that was a massive engineering accomplishment. And ultimately, when Sparta won, part of the final negotiation was like, tear down your stupid wall. They're like, all right, fine. So did the Sophists achieve their goals? Yes, but they did it in a way that was detrimental to their nation ultimately, which is that, sure, in the case of the question that Socrates asked Acrobiades, which is like, do you want to be the tyrant that goes unpunished or be the one that is punished? They were the tyrants that went unpunished until they were.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you could also argue that, like, look, even if you lived comfortably for a degree, your end was not great. And you also destroyed a lot of all the other stuff that you took for just like the pleasantries of life. They were gone. They were destroyed. They were decimated. There were no more. So I think that the oratory ability, aka public speaking and being persuasive, it's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But it ultimately is not an end in and of itself. Because the whole demonstration between the three people is that you have to have the ability to accomplish your goals. But at the same time, if you do that without the wisdom or the virtue behind it, you're ultimately going to kind of just scattershot and see where you land. In their case, they landed up in a civil war that led to the destruction of the nation. In a better situation, they could have done it with maybe at least better luck or more wisdom, and could have maybe had the Athens survive for another 100 years, maybe a millennia. Who knows? It's all the what if game at this point. But the real point is that Socrates absolutely just loathed and just disregarded the oratory. And you could argue that ultimately that was his downfall. But at the same time, the people that ignored philosophy, that was their downfall. And then there's this poor guy in the middle who did both and still got exiled twice.
Oh, man.
Look,
and here's the
Greek tragedy right here.
The issue with the guy in the middle who got exiled twice was he was just too like ahead of his time, and the rest of the world hadn't like caught up. So it's like, not only do you have to be good at this stuff, but you also have to make the world around you to be good and awesome too. And it's like he spent his time around a group of people that were, not at the same level, and they excommunicated him. And it's like, and then they suffered, and then he suffered, and then everybody lost. And so it's just like, not only do you have to be good, you have to surround yourself with good people. And like, it's very easy to knock down a building, and it's very difficult to put one up. So like
True.
All that.
Yeah. To your other question when it came to this topic, though, which is the idea of oratory in a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this really was the first case study of how persuasion in a democracy can be destructive. Ultimately, one of Socrates' students, Plato, creates Plato's Plato's Society, where he argues that people have certain places where they will best succeed, and they should stick to those places, whether they are a ruler, an aristocrat, a craftsman, a worker, a slave, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
To the human soul, that is absolutely repulsive, which is the idea that it's predestination to a T, which is like, you were born into the circumstance with these talents, therefore you should do this thing. You cannot change, you cannot move, your life may suck, but guess what?
Slavery.
That's your place. Yeah. It's highly controversial, and I think outright rejected by a lot of folks, especially the freedom crowd, and I understand why. But at the same time, do you see how Plato arrived at that destination after seeing what happened to the democracy when it came to Athens?
Yeah.
That is a logical outpoint.
Yeah, the math adds up, bro. It's like, just like doing and knowing and living the right thing doesn't mean that the right thing happens around you. It is the best that you can do, but there's still everything else that's around you that will affect your life as well.
Yeah, and this is also one of the topics that was covered in Starship Troopers, which is like, okay, we've agreed that democracy is good to a degree. So what is the limiting characteristic here? How do we decide who votes? Didn't get an answer in this book. Don't think Plato gave a great answer either. It's an understandable one, but I don't think it's a great one. And ultimately, it's kind of the question that we wrestle with. And in
Yeah.
today's day and age, where you and I, we've grown up through the time of mainstream media, now social media, and now disinformation campaigns largely fueled by AI. God, I think I saw a video on Instagram of someone claiming that, oh, look, the Iranians shot down 3 F-15s, and they had a video of it. And it was like, sir, that is an F-4 Phantom, and I'm pretty sure this footage is from the 90s.
Yeah, it's like right now we can tell, but soon you won't be able to. You know, do you remember the Will Smith eating spaghetti AI progression? You
Yep.
remember that meme? Yeah, we're
Oh, I do.
like 1 year apart, it was like this monstrosity, horrible thing to like, oh, that looks legit. Uh-oh, we're boned. You know, like where I really do think that Tiago Forte hit the nail on the head when he said that we're moving from the information age into the reputation age, where we're because now information is so cheap. It is so easy to create credible looking information, and anyone can do it. That like people are going to be investing into reputation. Reputation is the thing that now is valuable. So I'm already finding it, you know, just doing man on the street interviews in here in College Station. Like people are very interested in protecting their reputation more so than they used to be. People all the time would be like, "Oh, yeah, an interview. Yeah, ask me questions." And now it's like about 2/3 of the people that we ask is like, "Oh no, God no, I'm never going on an interview, no podcast, no, get that shit away from me." And it's like, bro, we're trying to spread positivity, and you know, but they won't have any of it because there's just so much that goes into destroying reputations and things, and like it's so easy to lose this valuable thing that's very hard to build up. So like, yeah, super crazy. I really think Tiago Forte hit the nail on the head when he said that like we're moving from the information age into the reputation age, and so like, yeah, bro, people will be lying online all the time, and like I'm starting to question all the things that I see that I used to like because I'm something of a conspiracy theorist myself, right? We all wear a little bit of a tinfoil hat every now and again. I'm just wondering like how much of my stuff is just the goy slop that's being fed to me that I'm like, this is delicious, good storytelling, and I'm totally fucking falling for it. And how much of it is truth? How much of it is just strictly fabricated to keep my eyeballs on the screen? You know, how much is pandering? How much is legitimate? Who the fucking knows? Yeah, from the information to the disinformation age. But I prefer to look at it from like information used to be valuable. So I'm gonna reverse a little bit. There was the industrial age, and then there was the information age, and now we're in the in before the industrial age. There's a couple different like ages and things that are sort of kind of marked by different timelines. Um, but I just think like broadly speaking, that what they're describing is this is the thing that makes people valuable, and this is the thing that gets people power and money and wealth and all that stuff. Is like in the industrial age, if you were the king of industry, then you're making boatloads of money. If you're a Rockefeller with the oil, or if you're the what was the steel family, I don't remember. If you're in like the big creation stuff during like the 18 and 1900s, and you know, moving up into World War I and II, it's like you're making boatloads of money. And then you move after World War II, and then it's like, and now it's all about like who has the best spies, who has the best ability to collect data, who has the best ability to tell stories, who can do the best everything. You know, that's the information age. And now moving out of the information age, because information is so cheap, the market is diluted. And so people that are searching for value aren't going to be looking in this red water area. They're going to go to the blue water area, which is like, oh, I'm a person that you can trust based on like the things that I talk about and the results. So like, what are the actionable things that you can take from interacting with me that like physically and measurably make your life better? So as people move out of the information age, because now anyone can make information, we're going into the reputation age, because info and disinfo is so fucking easy. So anyways, that's enough of me distracting us. We gotta get back on topic, Z, unless you got a thought.
I'm going to close out our orator versus philosopher and where democracy falls in this one. We got some really good comments from Moondog. He says, democracy is great for certain things, agreeable, concedable things, horrible for upholding the individual rights against a collective without amendment, or organizing military ops as an example. Yes. Yeah. Well said, sir. And then we also, Arceus to follow it up as well. The danger of democracy can also be the danger of tyranny. Lots of people can be wrong, and one person can also be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Or make bad decisions.
Oh, go ahead.
or make bad decisions, be swayed by sophistry. One person could be a great leader, but who chooses that leader?
The good thing with it being a centralized leader is that if the people get upset, then there's like one head of the snake. It's way easier to cut off one Hydra head than to cut off 100,000 Hydra heads. So like when it's singular leadership in tyranny, like if the king's being awful and the peasants don't like him, off with his head, we're storming the castle kind of deal. When it's everybody's the problem, it's a lot harder to fix the entire situation. So like, yes, one person could be very tyrannical, but it's also like, because it's a centralized point of failure or success, once you remove that centralized point, then it's like not a big problem. I would posit that we do not live in a centralized point of like with the United States system. It's a vastly diluted thing, either that or it's all just puppetry or anything. But that's a whole other topic. So these are some good some good topics. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Excellent comments, folks.
Oh, alrighty, that was the steel guy. That's right.
Yeah.
There we go.
Alrighty, I want to get to the big one here. The trial and death of Socrates. So here's your context. This is after the 30 tyrants and the political uprisings and the loss of the Peloponnesian Wars. Pretty much at this point, Athens, the city, briefly fell under the rule of an oligarchic regime known as the 30 Tyrants. The group ruled harshly and executed many citizens before being overthrown and replaced by the restored democracy. Several figures associated with Socrates, most notably Critias, had been connected to this regime. Although Socrates himself did not participate in their government, the political climate made Athenians suspicious of anyone perceived to be challenging democratic values. You know who's famous for challenging ideas? Yeah, that's Socrates guy. As a result, Socrates' habit of questioning politicians and criticizing public ignorance made him appear threatening in a city trying to stabilize itself after a political upheaval. Ultimately, he was charged with thus: corrupting the youth of Athens, failing to respect the traditional gods of the city, and introducing new spiritual ideas. These accusations reflected both religious concerns and political resentment towards his public questioning of the respected citizens. So, at this point, he goes before the 500 men. During the trial, Socrates refused to adopt the tyrannical defensive strategy of appealing emotionally to the jury. Instead, he defended his philosophical life. He explained that his questioning began after the oracle at Delphi declared that no one was wiser than him. Socrates interpreted this to mean that his wisdom consisted only in him recognizing his own ignorance. All right, let's pause here. This is another very critical point. The whole start to Socrates' journey was that he journeyed to Delphi, spoke with the oracle, kind of a stand-in for Apollo at the time, and came and was told that there is no one wiser than Socrates. So, how do you interpret that? If someone says that there is no one wiser than you, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, boy, howdy, does that make me feel good. And, like it probably what's great about this is like, because he admits that he knows nothing, and that is a very wise thing to do. People that because it shows that like you understand that you're calibrated to your limitations, which is when you're around people that aren't calibrated to their limitations, then they get overconfident and then they start, fucking shit up and driving on the wrong side of the road or setting off bombs in places or chopping fingers off. The wise man is the person who knows his limitations or her limitations.
Yeah. So this is a very critical point for Socrates. This is where he gets pretty much his divine mandate. Again, keep in mind, he lives in the era of like a pagan pantheon, which is like, we kind of don't question the gods. We just do what they say, because otherwise, they're going to strike lightning on the field again, then we lose the harvest. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 on that one. We got the lightning and the famine. So at the same time, you could also argue that even with just the cultural appeal to it, which is that you live in a society, the society has deemed that this is how you live life. Therefore, if you go against the society, you're kind of breaking the laws, even in this case, if it's more of a cultural or religious tradition. But at the same time, even by going this, giving the proclamation, there's no man wiser than Socrates, and then Socrates saying that, like, all right, is this person calling me the smartest man to ever live? Or are they saying something about all mankind, which is that nobody's smarter than me, and I think I'm kind of an idiot, Does that mean that we're all kind of idiots? That's the kind of the ultimate line that he got at. But what ultimately people argue this ultimately led to his downfall as well, which is that the conclusion that he drew after that one is that, okay, they said there is no man wiser than Socrates. I'm a philosopher. I should go try to find a man wiser than me so I can come back here and be like, hey, we might be wrong. How do you do that? You gotta go talk to a lot of people and figure out if they're smarter than you. And the way you do that is you kind of make a lot of people look stupid as well.
Yeah, and then they don't like you, and then they don't want to talk to you. There was something in the book as well where he was, or the author was observing, somebody was observing that when you speak to older people, they hate being proven wrong a whole lot more than the younger people, and it's likely due to the fact that the older folks have lived their lives with whatever their philosophy or whatever their thing is that they're thinking being the thing that led them to their success and led them down the roads and yada yada yada. And to find out that like it's flawed more than you think it is like a huge blow to the ego, and has great like has the ability to basically like destroy your life's work and make you rethink this. Like ontological shock is not a wonderful thing to learn. So the people that go through their life with this line of thought where it's like, I know that I know nothing, they don't experience ontological shock because they're aware of their limitations. And the people that are like, oh, I've been learning this thing forever and it's certainly true because I've just done nothing but like live inside of this like little channel that is my study, that is the thing. Like there's going to be a lot more limitation in there, and they're going to be a lot less interested in engaging in someone who has a tendency to prove people wrong. And so like he got a lot of his following from the younger folks, and his interactions with the older people didn't work out as well. And that had an effect on, I don't remember where I was going with this, but that was just
You're
something
good.
that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, no, that's very important because it leads into the next part here, which is that during the time of the 30 tyrants, they actually tried to chastise or pretty much restrain Socrates the first time, saying that, hey, you're corrupting the youth, you're introducing all these terrible ideas, you're going against the religion. You have
Yeah.
to stop talking about these things. And then Socrates' response was, what things are we talking about? And the answer was, in Socrates' opinion, contradicting. They're like, you can't talk about, like, you can't criticize the democracy and stuff like that. He's like, I don't do that. I talked about justice. And they're like, well, maybe you shouldn't talk about justice. He's like, can I talk about other things that are an analogy to justice? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever, as long as you don't like bring up this stuff specifically. So because it was contradictory, and also partly because, in my personal opinion, I don't think Socrates recognized the legitimacy of the 30 Tyrants era. He explicitly kind of just ignored what they told him, and he continued just going around doing his philosophy stuff. Ultimately, that's where we get to the trial where we're at here. And then in the trial, again, they thought that they were pulling a power move on him, and they're like, we're going to put you to death. You want to stop? You maybe want to apologize? And he just says, no, I'm not wrong. You are.
Death is preferable to betraying philosophy, which, props to him for standing to his guns.
10 toes down,
a good
baby.
man cannot be harmed in life or death. I like that quote.
Correct. Yeah.
It's a good one.
So would you also think it's a good idea at your trial to start questioning the people that are on the jury, all 500 of them, and then doing your Socratic method and making them look foolish?
I mean, it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to live longer like a bitch at the expense of pursuing the truth, or maybe just having a little bit of fun, then maybe don't do the thing that you're well known for doing and live a little bit longer. But if you want to stand true to your principles, which earned him his place in history, right, then you go down swinging, you go down doing the thing that they're getting you for, right?
Yeah.
So
look,
and
maybe
I do
not
like,
a great strategy from the practical standpoint, but
yeah,
the guy, like, early on in his
not
life,
immediately
came up with the idea that living a virtuous life was the only thing worth doing. And even at a trial where he could very easily apologize, leave, move to a different country, and then keep doing what he's doing over there. Nope. Instead, he chose to pursue that virtuous life all the way to the end.
Yep.
So that gets us to the verdict. In the verdict, He gave the famous response of, "I should live like your Olympic champions." Kind of tongue in cheek, and ultimately towards the end he does say that, like, look, realistically a fine would be appropriate, considering especially I'm poor, so it's going to hit me hard. I'm going to have to rely on other people and probably be beholden to them. But at that point the damage was kind of done, and yes, they sentence him to death by hemlock. That gets us to part 2 of this story, which is that there's a lot of writing about between the time when he was sentenced and to when he actually died. During this time, he actually meets with a lot of his students, and they talk about a lot of stuff. During this time, we kind of get some dialogue about death itself. And Socrates kind of comes to this conclusion that a lot of people fear death, and that's stupid, or it's irrational, if you will, because he says that death is not for the living and it's not for the dead. Okay, if death is not for the living and not for the dead, then who's it for? And he says nobody, because if you're living, you're living. And theoretically, when you die, your corporeal form ceases to exist. So all that stuff you're worried about now no longer matters. And if you're dead, you can't die again. So why are you worried about that first thing in the first place?
Yeah. Death is more the affair of the survivor. I can't remember who said that. Death is the survivor's affair. Maybe that was Socrates.
Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, ultimately we kind of get this. You could call it somber, you could call it crazy, but based on how Socrates lived his life, I can understand how the whole death argument makes sense. Obviously, there's a biological imperative not to die, but the whole point of Socrates was to escape the biological imperative and start using reason and rationality to live a good life, because that's what you're made to do, and you can escape being an animal, so you should choose to escape. And if that's the case, then death is not something to really fear. It's going to come one day or another. I think one of the famous quotes, he was looking at his friends and they're like, "Why are you crying? You knew I was going to die a long time ago. You're just mad it's happening a little early. Why cry now?"
Yeah, stop being a bitch.
A little bit. Yeah, this is also where we get to another, pretty much the last famous dialogue that he has, which is the idea of, it kind of gets back around to citizenship and what is your duty as a citizen. Reasonably so, you could argue that he was treated unjustly, which is that he was tried for pretty much nothing just because people didn't like him. Granted, he didn't do a good job of getting out of it, but that wasn't his point. The point was, I'm going to live a virtuous life. Part of this means that, yeah, there was an injustice done unto me. And then his students come to him and say, look, we can break you free from this prison. Come with us. We'll escape to another country and we can continue the pursuit of philosophy there. And he says, no, because that would be unjust. So he willingly chooses to accept death instead of escape an unjust situation. What's your take on that?
He's sticking to his principles, despite the danger to his person, because he talks about justice and he talks about the punishments not met is like a blight to everyone. And so if he were to escape from this punishment sort of thing, then the result of them killing him wouldn't have been had, the karmic justice wouldn't have been enabled. And they did kill Socrates, and the world did miss out on his whatever he was going to continue to teach and stuff. And if I remember correctly, I believe that they suffered for it. I believe that you were saying the 30 tyrants or something rule was not so great or not so awesome. If they would have continued letting him live, then then he might have spread his ideas, and that place might have been great as a result. But because they killed him, they probably had some bad times and things. That's my conjecture, anyways. What do you think?
I think that this one there's twofold. You could argue that he was continuing his philosophical belief, which is like, look, if he's not backing down at a trial, he's not backing down at the gallows, which is that he's continuing to live it out. He accepted that unjust things will happen to you, just like they happened to his buddy. And he knows that full well. He saw the full consequences and he went down this path anyways. Not as a matter of like willpower, sticking it to the man, but as like actually living true to his own principles that he came to through reason and philosophy.
Yeah.
ultimately, though,
Much
it
respect.
kind of, hey, I can respect it all day. But it also comes down to another point that he got to earlier. And I totally just forgot what it was. Shoot. Let me look through my notes.
Yeah. I'm having fun with these infographics. While you're looking
here's
through.
The point. One of the earlier points is he makes when it goes back to the idea of are there good or evil? Are there evil people? And he says, no, if they had wisdom, they would choose to pursue good. Because they don't have wisdom, they're doing what you call evil, but what they don't see as evil. And the reason, one of the other things he comes to with this is that if you're using logic and reason, you should reason that you should always try to better your nation, your state, your city state, your country, whatever it is. The reason being is that you were born from this land, they gave to you. You have, now that you're an adult, if you've chose to live within the society, you have a duty to make it better. That carries out to, okay, I'm in prison because I was convicted. If I commit an unjust act by breaking out of prison because I don't like the punishment, then theoretically that would be a standard for everyone else, meaning that there are no punishments. We just simply try to put you away and then you leave. But the reality here is that if you wish to make a better state, even if you are unjustly put down, the rationality is that I might be unjustly put down, but other people might be justly. Therefore, it would reason that I should uphold the system that carries out these things as good civic duty. Kind of backwards, especially in today's like consciousness of like our concern about like the death penalty and should the state have the ability to control someone's life, like literally, that kind of stuff. But this is way before any of that. And the logic at the time says that I want the society to be just and I want people in society to follow the laws. Therefore, I must follow the law even if I disagree with it.
Yeah. It's again, super principled guy. To the end.
Yeah. That's a bit of a rough one though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Moondog and Arceus came in here with some good comments. He was like, dude was like 80. Drinking hemlock was an easier way out than he was probably otherwise scheduled for. Otherwise went out worse. Again, Jesus, an easy canonical example. And Arceus saying, good point. Back then, 80 was like 125 today. He might have been gunning for the hemlock.
Fuck you, I get an easy death. And I get to live forever. And you guys get to be the bad guys? Oh, fucking win.
I'm not gonna lie, the way they described the hemlock in the book was seems kind of terrifying. Because the guard gives him the hemlock, is like, drink it, and then walk around till your legs get tired. Eventually your legs are gonna go cold and numb, and then you just wait for the rest of you to go cold and numb. And they say that you know the true moment of death is when you feel your chest right around your heart go cold as well, and that's your last moment. I was like, that's kind of brutal. I'm not gonna lie.
That is pretty fucking brutal. I'm gonna Google hemlock poisoning. Bam. Oh, immediately poison control comes up. Thank you, Google. I appreciate that. What happens with hemlock poisoning? Conicum maculatum, central nervous system depression, respiratory failure, acute rhabdomyosis, and acute renal failure, and even death. What is the symptoms of being poisoned? No. Hemlock poisoning, chemical and symptoms. Bam. God damn it. I don't want poison control. Thank you, Google, for giving me poison control, but I want information. What is it? Oh, neuromuscular blockage. Okay. Yeah. Weakness and paralysis, respiratory failure, apnea, a bunch of other things. Okay. Yeah. So it's a neuromuscular thingamajigger. Wow. That's a pretty flower though. It looks like a nice little white thing. Avoid hemlock, guys, I guess. Don't eat hemlock.
There you go.
I wonder what the LD50 is. Yeah.
True.
Highly toxic if consumed. But yeah, that's a takeaway from the show. So he walked around until he got numb, and then out there to the final straw.
Yeah. Boss. So the final points out of the trial and the death. There are a few contradictions that people kind of point out when it comes to Socrates, because he specifically talks about you have a duty to uphold the laws of your nation. But at the same time, the reason that he went out the way he did is that he believed that he had a higher duty to moral reason and philosophy over the state. Tried to adhere to both of them, but ultimately he was put to the sword for it. Do you think that this is a contradiction, or do you think that this is a logical conclusion of holding these two things both in high regard?
I mean, I don't know if it's a logical conclusion, but it at least makes sense to me that this is what happened. What do you think?
I see why it sounds contradictory, but I think that especially in context of the year of our Lord 2026, we have a lot more to go off, which is like the state is not the end all be all. We have discovered, whether through religion or moral reason, that there are other things that go on beyond just the power of the state, especially in an era where it feels like the power of the state is near infinite at this point. But it really breaks down into the hierarchy of what is your priority in life. What are you here to do? Are you here to serve yourself? Are you here to serve the state? Or are you here to serve a higher power? In Socrates' case, he found that his purpose in life was to live a virtuous life through cultivating his soul, his wisdom, and his reasoning. He also recognized he had a duty to the state, but that the state was an outcropping of circumstance. Therefore, his circumstance dictate what happens in life, but ultimately everything that was in control of him, he took control of, which was his soul and his choices. And as a result, he made the decision that the hierarchy says, I follow my pursuit, I adhere to the laws. Sometimes the laws aren't going to be what I like, but I'm in control of myself all the way to the bitter end. So it sounds logical, but again, I mentioned it early, the Pavlov's hierarchy of needs. If you go off that, then in order to achieve that kind of like thinking and rationality, you have to have everything else resolved. If you're not there, then yeah, it absolutely sounds like a contradiction, because at that point, survival is number one, not pursuit of principles at that point. So that's where I think the contradiction really comes from.
Yeah. I like it.
Here's the other contradiction that came out of this. Socrates said that you have a duty to follow the rules of your nation. He was number one critic.
I mean, there's like, the nation will come up with rules. Like occasionally, like the nation will come up with bad rules, and maybe you should follow them on principle, and maybe you shouldn't. If I was in Socrates' position, I certainly wouldn't follow the rules. I would be doing something totally different. But maybe that's why I wouldn't be remembered like Socrates did. They remember the people at the far ends of the bell curve, like the ones that are just autistically 100% in the thing that they're doing. They don't remember the people that are like 95%, 83%, something like that. The guys that just fucking gun for everything. So I think that it led credence to his message and to his branding and his marketing later on, even though at the time got him killed.
Yeah, I think that at the surface, this does sound like a contradiction, which is like, you should follow the laws of your nation, but at the same time, why is this guy the number one critic and always try to like question everything and you could definitely argue it sounds like he's trying to finagle his way out of doing what the state is requiring. But at the same time, I think this actually ties back into the previous one, which is like, you have a duty to leave your country better than you found it. As a result of that, that also means that it might not be perfect the way it is, but if you can improve it, you have a duty to do so. The way that you improve it is you got to point out the flaws and try to fix them. The powers that be aren't going to appreciate you pointing out flaws, but at the end of the day, if what makes it better, that's the way to do it.
I really, really like Moondog's quote right here. Kind of off topic, but if autism didn't exist before 1927, how the fuck do you explain wizards?
Agreed.
Oh man, that's so good. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm saving that, broski. I'm putting that in my quote of the day material.
There you go. So as far as, do you criticize the laws? Do you follow the laws? Well, this actually goes back, ironically, to the thing that Socrates was terrible at, oratory. AKA, you got to persuade or obey. You can make your arguments, but at the end of the day, if your arguments have been found to be lacking, then guess what? just because you don't like it, you couldn't persuade other people, doesn't mean that you can unilaterally change it.
Yep.
And again, he lives in a democracy, which at the time he was ruled by the people that voted, wasn't ruled by tyrants. And in fact, they had a large disdain of tyrants at the time. And he knows because his buddy was exiled twice because they thought he might be a tyrant one day.
It worked out.
Wild stuff.
It works out.
Yeah. Brutal. Alrighty. Tell you what, sir. That is all that I have for the show notes. Is there anything else that we did not cover?
I am currently looking through the Telegram at the notes that I had taken. I want to say like a couple of the really cool quotes that were in the book. Also, just there was a really funny thing that AI did for me as I put like the book through an AI like filter thing for Degen Roundtable Book Club. It gave action items at the very end of the thing. It's like, hey, these are recommendations for people to do. So, reminder for Nicias to write to the Athenian Assembly, requesting recall of the Sicilian expedition and permission to resign command. For Demosthenes, advise Nicias to call off the Sicilian expedition and return home. And then behind that has to be determined. And then for Socrates, his to-do list is refuse participation in the arrest of Leon of Salome, ordered by the 30 tyrants. So, it was fun that there's some action items. That was a fun thing from AI. Some of the good quotes: people are not upset by events, but by their ideas about them. Also, know thyself. The two words.
Oh, got that one. That was the big
Yep.
one. Yeah.
Yep. Know thyself. So look, guys, this is what Socrates was. It was like this was pillar to a lot of the stuff that he was doing. He was always trying to learn more about himself, and like, both on like the individual level and like what are Greeks, what are humans, what is like on every step of the scale of what is thyself. Like, okay, I'm a man. What do I know about men? I am a Greek. What do I know about Greeks? I'm a human. What do I know about humans? Like, know yourself in every single way possible.
It's funny you mentioned that was pillar to Socrates because he literally got it off of a pillar.
Yes. Yes, chosen words on purpose right there.
Very nice. Excellent.
Mhm.
Yeah, the know thyself is very, God, I can't believe I forgot that one. That is very heavily repeated in the book, and it is very core to Socrates. Not just from know thyself of like know what you're capable of, but also know what you don't know, because that really is one of the central tenets of Socrates, is that if you think you know things but you don't, you will absolutely come across as foolish. And the whole point, the whole Oracle of Delphi thing was saying that, like, you could take it as like, look, Socrates, you're the smartest guy, or Socrates and his friends who heard it and thought about it were like, okay, I think what they're actually saying is that this is more of a reflection on mankind, and that mankind doesn't really know much, and it's on you to figure it out. And you can also draw the parallels here to kind of like the equality line, which is like, you are not better than your fellow man. You are all equally fools, that kind of thing. But ultimately, it is the motivator for everything Socrates does. It's why he sees everybody. It's why he questions things the way he does. It is why he thinks of himself the way that he did. Know thyself, very important. And yeah, know what you know what you're capable of, and know that you can get better. Definitely prove that you can do it, because he did a lot in one lifetime without the internet, let me tell you.
Yeah. To tee off of that thought, another thing is that we should be as we wish to appear. So if you want to become a person that other people see and respect, you first must be a respectable person. So the whole, like, become the thing that you wish to be seen as. Like, be the man that your dog that you thinks you are, sort of thing. That was a really good one.
That was a good subplot that ran through a lot of the characters as well. Is that Acrobiades, even though he was young, he figured this out after talking to Socrates for the first time, because he was like thinking about the great hero of Athens that he wants to be. But then Socrates was like, do you want to be the hero, or do you want to be those things? And he's like, yes, I want to be those things. Being a hero may or may not be an outcome of it. And that was something that went through the entire book, whether it was the first talk with Acrobiades as a kid, or even the 30 Tyrants era, is that are men trying to be perceived as something, or are they trying to be the thing?
I like that. I think that's a good quote to end on. Is
There you go.
be as you wish to appear.
There you go.
So
Love it.
yeah.
Alrighty, sir. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I really like this book. It was a great book. Super fantastic. A great read. I will probably reread it. I do wish that there was a little bit less storytelling and more of like the lessons and the substance, but fantastic. And the audio for those of you guys that were having issues with Audible, like Zenith and I were, the raw audio exists inside of the Telegram. If you want to go listen to mostly 1 through 4 and mostly 5 to the end, I got it pretty good on as I was screen recording on my phone. So it is available in there at like 2.3 times speed. So if you want to listen to it quickly, then that's where it is. And if you guys want notes and things, then that also exists. And all the infographics that I've been making during the show, I've posted into the Telegram as well, so you guys can enjoy some pretty pictures. By the way, shout out to Battle and Sniper, who's been liking those pictures. So we know you're watching, broski. Shout out to all our ninja washers out there.
We see you.
We fucking love you. But yeah, great book. We'll probably read it again. Good preventative maintenance education. I would say this is probably on a scale of 0 to 10,000. Where should people read this on their journey to excellence? I would say that they should probably read this around hour 1,000. So somewhere around 6 months into your journey, maybe further, maybe less. But just as like a generic piece of advice, read this after you're about 6 months into doing whatever you're doing, and you'll get better at doing whatever it is that you're doing. So that's my thoughts. Don't start off with it too early. But it won't be the end of the world if you do. Other than that, the folks can find me at t.me/Will Stevenson. That's where you can get a hold of me, or also in the DGen Roundtable Telegram by scanning that QR code up there, or going to t.me/DRT join now. That's what's up. That's all that I've got. Zenith, what do you think about the book? Final thoughts.
I actually had it on my 0 to 10,000 hour scale right around you. I was thinking 1,000 to 2,000 hours. The concepts that are covered by the book are very important because they are the basis of a lot of moral and philosophical thought that we have built on up until this day. At the same time, though, this topic in general is not really a beginner topic, even in the form that it is here. I really like this book, and one of the things that I really like about this the most is that I think the author does a fantastic job of making this topic and subject approachable and understandable.
Yeah.
I know you said you wish there was a little less of the narrative. I think the narrative is kind of necessary for keeping people connected and keeping them attached to the ongoing life and saga of Socrates and kind of the evolution that he takes, but also it keeps you interested in the concepts, because as a guy that has tried to study these concepts before, it is dry. It is drier than Sahara, baby. It is rough. And this book is fantastic. I really like the author's writing style. The narrator for the Audible version, I want to say he's like Scottish or something.
It is the author, yeah. It is.
Oh,
it is.
okay.
It was Donald J. Robertson.
Yeah, the Acrobiades is the name that was the hardest for me, because the whole time I thought he was saying house of something. He was like, house, like Ruby. I can't even do it justice. It was, the guy's got a good voice. Good voice.
He does have the Scottish accent. Yep.
Yeah. But look, overall, I had some really high hopes coming to this one because we really enjoyed How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. This one is going to be perhaps less practical, but more informational when it comes to philosophical thought. At the same time, though, I think the guy smashed it out of the park, 1,000%. This is fantastic. I would feel very comfortable giving this book to anybody that's curious about the topics, because Socrates is referenced a ton throughout a lot of history, and trying to like actually dive down and like dig into the stuff. If you go through the dialogues of Socrates, that's a tough read. This makes it a lot easier. And with some cursory Googling and AI help, you can absolutely ask it all the questions that you have coming out of this book, and it'll help fill in the blanks or help you remember the things that you might have forgotten. So overall, this was great. I really like this one. Shout out to Moonpilled. Thank you so much for suggesting this one. Again, absolute smash hit. Love it, love it, love it.
Hell yeah. And we do have 3 chat shout outs before rocking and rolling away. In case you forgot.
Absolutely. First up, Tam Tam stopped by. She says, hello, my lovelies. A pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you like this one. I feel like You might really enjoy this one. I think you're down with some of the philosophical discussion, and I hope we did justice for you and broke down the topics and had some good discussion to extrapolate a bit. Which, by the way, the author does that as well in the book. Ties it to current day stuff going on. Has some of these moments interject between the chapters. It is a nice refresher. Gets you thinking about today's day and age instead of that old guy in the robe or the toga, if you will. We also got Tail the 8th with the skateboard and the shaka. Good to see you, sir. Hope you're shredding it up. I think I might be too old for the old skateboarding. The ankles, they just aren't what they used to be.
Tony Hawk agrees with you. You are too old, Zenith.
There you go. And last but not least, from Sam Stevenson himself, he says, "Will you go to prom with me?" Question mark. Even has the please and the little eyes. There you go. There you go.
Anime eyes.
True.
There you go.
Alrighty, folks, that is all we got for you here tonight. My name is Zenith. You can find me over on Instagram and X at zenithdi. But more importantly, like Will mentioned earlier, you can find us and all you guys and our fantastic community inside the community Telegram, which you can get into by scanning the QR code directly above me. Outside of that, we're going to be back on Sunday for our flagship news show covering everything going on in the great, big, crazy, chaotic world of crypto. Interesting week, some decent price movement. I'm curious to look into the charts and see if I can find anything. But that's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern time, like all of our shows. After that, you can catch us on Wednesday, where we do Whiskey Wednesday. You can join Will and Brendan, and then I stop by sometimes when I find some time. And then after that, we're going to be back Friday. That's right, next week, book club yet again. Mr. Will Stevenson, it is your turn. Do you have a book you would like to cover?
It is my turn. I do not have a book off the top of my head, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the book suggestions, and then the first one that I see that I like is going to be the one that I pick. And man, I know that this is a topic titled book suggestion, but there is just not a lot of words that are the actual books. It's a lot of conversation. So let's see. Ooh, this is from our good friend, The Herc. The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. That is the book that we're going to be doing. Shout out to the Herc, an excellent gentleman. So this is the book, The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. That's the one that we're covering. So there you guys go. I think that's going to be a good one indeed. Shout out to Herc.
Big shout out to that guy, our brother in South Africa, keeping it real over there.
Hell yeah.
All right, we got the book. Shout out the shows. Gave our thoughts. That's pretty much it. So it's time to do the thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for spending your valuable your time here with us on the DGen Roundtable. As our own Agent Jay often says, we know that time is your most valuable asset, so we appreciate you guys investing it right here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zenith, but more importantly, you have been watching the DGen Roundtable. Mr. Producer, that's me. Go ahead and get that trigger finger ready, because it's time to remind all the folks at home to remember to degen responsibly.